Now we're going. Welcome back to the Beehive Biker Podcast, where I apparently don't know how to turn on the record button, and we talk for 25 minutes without recording. How embarrassing. All right. Okay. We're starting again. I have here with me Weston Priestley, good friend of my brother-in-law's, and he was gracious enough to come onto the show. He works over at Saddle Back Harley Davidson over in Logan, Utah as a mechanic, and he's a very good guest because he's patient with me. So we're going to rehash some of the stuff we've been talking about for the last 25 minutes, but hopefully we'll be able to remember all the good stuff we were talking about. Please introduce yourself and what you rode today over to my place, and talk about some motorcycles a little bit.
All right. Like you said, Weston Priestley. I work at Saddleback. I rode today. I've got my 2013 Deluxe. I've also got a 91 Tour Glide and an 07 Softail Standard that's sitting in my garage. Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you have on them?
My Deluxe has the most. I've got Legends Air Ride on the rear. I've got DNA fat spokes for the rims. I've got Carlini bars. Is
that like your show bike?
Yeah. That's what my boss calls it. Calls it the bike show. So it's done up pretty good, but it's probably one of my favorites, and it's got motor work. Of course, it has to.
Right.
So
do you take it to any shows, or is that kind of the purpose built, or was that just you wanted it that way and that's how it ended?
Yeah. I've taken it to shows. I've won a couple.
Oh, there you go.
But I haven't done that for years. So I built it. Also, it's my hot rod.
Mm-hmm.
So I said it's got motor work and it'll get up and go. But it's been my cruiser and everything. I've gone to the coast on it with the wife, and we've been all over this side of the United States. So,
do you ever bring it on down here to Peach Days
No.
in September? Dude, you really ought to come. I hear there's some other big events around that same time, so
Yeah.
it's sometimes hard to.
Well, it's hard to get out of the shop too.
Oh, yeah.
That's the downfall of working in the industry, is trying to get away from stuff in the summertime. Just doesn't happen too much.
Tuesday, Saturday, is that what they're working at?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. I am so grateful that you're willing to sit down and talk to me. You know what? I do have to say, I am glad that I noticed when we did, because it would really suck to go for an hour and have nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So some of the things we'd like to talk to you about today is how you got into the motorcycle industry, working for a dealership, what motivated you to move over and get that education, and kind of the details about the schooling and what's available here in the United States. And then just through your experience over years working at the dealership, what things people bring in a lot, what questions they might have, some commonly brought in things that maybe were preventable, damage and whatnot. So I think it'd be a really insightful episode for those who maybe are interested in modding their motorcycle, maybe some suggestions you have for that and whatnot. But we'll get to that as we get on going. So you mentioned before that you started at Harley Davidson, but you weren't a mechanic.
Right. Yep. I started there. It was 2000. I got to do the math. It was 2010 when I started there. I started as the wash boy or hydro tech, whichever, and did that for 2 years. And then I decided that I wanted to do more, and decided to go to school. Went down there in 2011, graduated in 13, came back as a technician, and yeah.
Been there the last, 13, so 11 years.
Yeah. Yep. 11 years as a technician.
There you go. So you mentioned hydrotech. Is that kind of like the detail specialist? They work on the bikes and then you would take over after it's finished and you need to have it ready to clean up for the customer to come grab.
Yeah. It's just the more, I guess, professional way to say a wash boy. That's what we are. So yeah, cleaning the bikes and you're taking out the trash and sweeping floors and
you're the helping hand.
Doing the grunt work.
How many people like that do they usually have at a dealership?
Ours, we only have one.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many like Salt Lake or anything, because they're of course a bigger dealership than what we are, but I don't know if they have one or two, to be honest. So just depends on the dealership size.
Gotcha. And you saw others working on bikes and you just decided, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. I had a good buddy, Quentin, that worked there as a mechanic, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me a lot of things. And we spent a lot of hours in that shop. After hours and stuff, just working on stuff, talking, joking. That was what made me decide to do this, because just saw how much fun I could have just sitting there now. So why not go become a mechanic? And plus it was fun. I love working with my hands. And so it all worked out.
Yeah, I think that's a very common thing in the motorcycle industry. There's a lot of people that they like doing things with their hands. Like me personally, I don't think I could just sit in an office all day long, sitting on a computer, doing paperwork or whatever. I've worked construction the last several years. I work at maintenance now, and I like being outside. I like doing things, and that's one of the best parts about riding a motorcycle is it can take you anywhere.
Oh yeah.
So I love it. So you went to MMI, is that what you said?
Yep.
And it stands for?
Motorcycle Mechanics Institute.
Okay. And there are 2 locations.
Yeah.
Where are they at?
Phoenix and Orlando.
Yeah. And what do they offer at these locations? What kind of programs do they have?
So you've got, that's the only place you can go to get Harley certified. But they also have, they've got Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, Kawasaki, BMW. I'm sure they have more. Like I said, I've been out of the school game for a minute. I just go for catch-up classes. But
right,
I think talking to one of the instructors last time I was down there, I think they have a Can-Am class now too.
Really?
So that they said they've been teaching them like the side-by-sides and stuff like that. And I didn't do any of those because I kind of got into Harley, and had the whole thought of if you know one motor, you know them all, but that's not completely true. So I didn't do BMW because BMW was very, very particular as to who they have come in. You had to have the 4.0 and the perfect attendance, and they paid attention to all that stuff. So that wasn't.
So when you say you had to have the 4.0 and the perfect attendance, was that leading up to the split off classes?
Yes.
Okay. So could you describe again what kind of led up to the split off?
So the first 6 weeks were bookwork, paperwork, tests, all that stuff, just to go through the basics, make sure you have that basic knowledge of how an engine works and different things like that. Then after that 6 weeks, you would go into, I can't remember what they called them, but basically your generals in college. So you'd go through and you'd work on everything. You were working on transmissions, motors for all sorts of different bikes. Like I said, we put together a little, I think it was 150 maybe, Honda, that we had to tear down, build back up, put it in the bike, make sure it started. Mm-hmm. And then after, I think it was, like I said, I want to say 6 months, 20, somewhere around there. And then after that, you would split to your specific classes. So then you'd go to your Harley or your Honda, and those were the 2 that were the bigger programs. They were a 24-week program. And then after that, you could keep moving on. So if you did the Harley for 24 weeks, then you could go to early model, which was all your panheads, knuckleheads, and stuff like that. I did that class, and that was pretty cool.
So that falls under a separate class, like kind of a classic heritage mechanic.
Yeah. So you didn't have to do that if you wanted, but who wouldn't?
Right.
If you're in Harley,
you're gonna see it most likely.
Yeah. Not too often. I mean, I could probably count on one hand how many times I've seen a pan head or a shovel head. Or
is it just because at that point people are like, well, it's old, I can figure it out, kind of thing, or
majority of the time,
or they're just not around as much?
All of the above.
Okay,
I mean,
it adds up.
You've got a lot of the old timers work on their own stuff. They know it, and by all means, fine. Hard to get parts for, so we don't take a lot of that stuff in the shop because it turns into a rat's nest.
Gotcha.
I mean, then you're stuck on it, and so
does Harley not offer parts for a lot of those legacy motorcycles anymore?
Not a whole lot. You can go into like vintage parts or a lot of aftermarket stuff. That's even right now. It's even starting to happen with the twin cam.
Oh, really?
I mean, we're seeing a lot of stuff that you can't get from the twin cam because that's. I mean, you've got the Milwaukee 8 now.
How long was? Let's see. Milwaukee 8 was introduced in 20. Was it 17?
I was
because 15 was the Rushmore, but it
16 or
retained the twin cam.
Yeah,
and then 17, I think, was when they released the production M8.
Yeah, right around there. That's one thing I'm not good with. I'll tell you now.
I'm a nerd for the number. Like I love. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. Is I love knowing the ins and outs of things. So when I see a motorcycle flying by, and I'll look at my wife and be like, "That's that." She's like, "How do you know?" Like, because I can't help it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, kind of back to the program. When you're in that initial 6 months or so, how many people are in that class?
God, when we first started, we probably had, I don't even remember. There was probably at least 30 of us.
Okay.
That we first started, and then after that first 6 weeks, they basically split us into two classes. So you were down to about 15 or so, and then I mean,
just to drop you into different groups for working on the generic stuff.
Yeah, so you'd go into rotations. So it was 3-week programs, and you'd go 3 weeks in this class while they were over here, and then you'd swap, and they'd do the other ones, and then you'd just kind of keep progressing in your classes. Just because, I mean, they don't have a ton of stuff to where you could do 30 people per class and have all motors and that, but there's a lot of stuff down there, a lot of old or new bikes that you see, and you're like, why is this here? Because all it is a training aid, and it's just getting ruined. But does the school just buy those out, or do companies invest in the school so that they have continuing mechanics coming into the industry? I probably a little bit of both. I'm not 100%. I think some of them are even donated by Harley.
Yeah.
That it's just,
I'm sure it's like a write-off, like, oh yeah, send some bikes, let them work on that.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned on the time we recorded before, that there was a potential, maybe you'd heard some rumors that Harley Davidson was trying to create another method for receiving those certifications, maybe through apprenticeship program or something like that.
Yeah. And like I said, that's just me. That's not written.
It's the rumors. It's the rumors.
Books. But I had heard that it was Harley might be offering like an apprenticeship to where you can bring on somebody as a mechanic, and then they'll ship them back to Milwaukee for like a week, and then they'll work on something, come back to the dealership for a few weeks, and do it, and then go back and kind of do that for like a four classes, I guess. But like I said, that's just a rumor, whether that's true or not.
I mean, I think that'd be a great idea. What's the industry like right now? Is there really a need for more technicians? Is there are they lacking the amount that they need to service what they have, or do they have too much? It's like, hey, we don't need new technicians. Like, what's that kind of like, at least in Utah?
In Utah, I think we're kind of, I don't know. There's always a demand for technicians because there's a lot of the times, and this sounds bad, but there's people don't want to do it.
Right.
I mean, nobody has that desire. I know from when I was in class last, talking to the instructor and stuff, he said that when I went through class when I graduated in 13, they had three different classes. They had a morning, afternoon, and a night class, and all of them were full. That campus, wow. Like the campus was packed. Now they're down to about 400 students, and that's one scheduled class. Jeez. So I think it's a lot of just people don't want to do it anymore.
Gotcha.
But I said, I mean, it's so, as for if there's a high demand, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's high, but it's always out there.
Right. Plus, there's always people aging out or retiring or moving positions. You need new guys, but
yeah.
Yeah. So do they offer through the school tuition assistance or like grants or stuff like that? Is that something that you had to participate in to get into that schooling, or
yeah,
or did you pay your way through?
I ended up getting a few scholarships and stuff like that. They've got a ton of scholarships. One they had that I remember was they offered a scholarship for if you lived over 800 miles away
from the school.
Yeah,
so like everybody.
Yeah, which I did, but I didn't get it. And I was all, well, that doesn't make sense. But I mean, that just tells you that there's all sorts of scholarships. It's just getting on and looking them up and applying for them and see what happens. They have the whole, I don't know what they call it, but they'll help you find a job afterwards too. If you go through there, they're calling shops, and we get it now where we get a lady that calls and says, hey, I've got a student that's graduating. Are you guys hiring? And so they do that. Their administration does that for you, so you can get some job placements and stuff like that. And like I said, you do, of course, you have student loans and all that stuff because it's not cheap,
right?
And I don't know what it is now, but it was about $30,000 when I went through.
Oh, dang! So those placement advisors, are they particular to only reaching out to dealerships of all makes and models, or will they call your mom and pop shop and be like, hey, we got, because I know there's all sorts of different shops that do Harley Davidson or Honda, or because there's one here down in Perry, just on the border. And that guy used to work at a Honda dealership here in town before it went out of business. And then he's just been doing it on his own for the last who knows how long. So I didn't know if that was something that, like, they'd reach out to a smaller shop and say, hey, we got guys.
I'm not positive on that one. I bet if they put their name in there.
Oh, they can like reach out and be like, hey, if you got new guys, give me a heads up. Yeah. That makes sense.
So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how they work that, if the people are studying that close or if they're just calling dealerships. I'm not 100%.
Gotcha. And then do they have like student housing, or was it kind of just, that's on your own?
Yeah, they have student housing and stuff that was, well, when I went there, the school was up on Deer Valley, but it's now moved. And they used to have a whole set of apartments right across from the school that they'd help students out. I got pretty lucky. I had a buddy that worked at Golden Spike that was going down the same time I was, and he had a friend that lived down there, so we ended up going to his house, staying at his house, and that helped me out a ton.
That'd be a lot nicer than living in like dorms or something. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Have a little privacy.
Yeah.
Like, that was one thing in the AIT in the Army, just being in close proximity with all the other students. Like that was just like, man, I just need some space from you people sometimes.
Yeah. I'd say we had our own rooms, and you could definitely go get away for a minute.
And then, what was I going to say? Oh, is it ever possible that like a dealership could sponsor you through the program? Like maybe if in your circumstance when you were already working there, have you ever heard of that ever happening?
Not me specifically. I haven't heard of them sponsoring or sending me to school or anything. I have had our company themselves that have brought people on that want to do it, and then they'll bring them into a mechanic if they want to. When I went, there was the owner at the time said I had to have my certificate, so that's where I decided I had to go. But we have had since then that they brought in like a wash boy that has the desire and the passion, and they brought him in as a technician if he wants to do it, and it's worked out that way. So
what made you decide Arizona over Florida? Because you said they had the two schools.
Because like I said, I'm not a small boy, so it was either humidity or dry heat, and I decided dry heat.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that I've lived in Arkansas and Texas, and the humidity being in like the height of summer is just the absolute worst. So being born and raised here in Utah where it's dry, Arizona's got to be, 120-ish on a good day a lot of times.
Yeah, majority of the time.
Yeah, I've got some cousins that are down there in Phoenix, and I asked him, I'm like, how do you survive in that heat? And he's like, well, you know how you guys in Utah, like you run from your heated car to your heated house. He's like, it's like that, but in reverse. Like we go from our air conditioned car, and we don't like leave the house a lot of times when it gets super hot. But
I had one time we were out on the bikes, and I had to put a bandana on my face, and everybody was giving me a hard time, and they're like, you're just trying to be a gangster. And I was like, no, I'm trying to breathe. Because I can't. It's like putting a blow dryer right in your face and riding that whole time. And it was miserable. We had a buddy of mine and I that when we were down there that took off on Labor Day, we had to go up into the mountains just to escape because it was like, oh, God. It was just so hot.
So does that affect like their riding season? Because here in Utah, we're like, oh, we can't ride until the snow's all gone or whatever. They're just like, dang, it's too hot to even ride.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I think especially with like Harley Davidsons, now they're kind of moving over to at least the cooled heads and whatnot. But the oil cooled or the air cooled engine. Oh yeah. I'm sure that just like overheats instantly.
Oh, yeah. All the time. When I was down there, I had my Evo, and it was that way that it was just going out on those hot days. I'd have to pull over all the time because my oil light would kick on, and I'm like, just cool down. So it was, like I said, it was the opposite of here. In the wintertime, we're stuck inside, but in the summer they are because it's too hot.
So did you ride before you even started working for the dealership?
I did a little. I had, like growing up, I had most of it was four-wheelers. I didn't really ride bikes or anything like that. My parents ended up they bought a little, what was it? There was a Yamaha 250, and then they bought a Suzuki Boulevard 800 that we started riding on, and I had those to practice on, and then I never had a Harley before, never even really considered it because I was like, they're expensive, I can't afford a Harley.
Right.
So I wasn't too worried, never stepped in a dealership or anything like that before I went, and then I ended up getting a divorce, and some friends helped me out with getting me in a Harley.
Oh, really? So was that a Sportster?
No, that was my Tour Glide.
Oh, it was your Tour Glide.
And that was my first Harley. It was a big old bagger.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So, and then and then I went into the shop and had Quentin there, and he helped me out fix a few things and brought me in as the wash boy, and the rest's history.
So as a fun factoid, was this the North Logan or Northern Logan location before they moved?
Yep.
And what year did they build that new dealership? Do you remember? I want to say it was like
it's
2015.
I was just say, well, no, it's been, holy cow. I think we've been in there 6-7 years, maybe. Like I said, I'm not a numbers guy.
No, you're good. Was that the one?
It,
where was it? Was that the one across from?
Right next to Sonic.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Over by the cinema, whatever.
Yep.
Cinemark.
Yes, Cine 4.
Cine 4. So, yeah. No, that's crazy. Here's what's funny is like growing up, I never I grew up riding dirt bikes, but I never like went to a dealership or anything like that. And so I didn't even realize we had one until they moved and I was a little older.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I love going to Saddleback, all really good guys that work there that I've met. So what's their setup? How many mechanics do you guys have? How many benches do you guys work with? About how many motorcycles are you kind of rolling through on the daily?
We've got 5 benches and 1 mechanic. Yep.
You're the one mechanic.
I'm the one mechanic.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Brandon, who runs the counter, he's a technician too, but he does the front, I do the back.
Gotcha.
And it's been that way we're going on 4 years now.
Oh, really? So you've had more in the past, but now you're just down to the 2.
Yep. We had 2 at one point, and then he quit. And I just said, well, let me see what I can do. And I said, we've done it since then. The old shop we had, when I first started, I think we had 3 technicians out there, but it's one of those and Brandon was one of those, and we talk about it quite a bit, that there wasn't enough. Wasn't enough work for 3. And now there's not enough for 2, but almost a little too much for 1.
Gotcha. So it's kind of hard to balance that.
Yeah. So I don't know how much we put out. I couldn't tell you that. But
and I meant to ask you this earlier, and I think you kind of touched on it. Do you have to go to schooling every so often to kind of keep up your certifications, or just with Harley Davidson's more recent changes that they have you go to school or a refresher course or new material course? Is that something that they have you do?
Yeah, I mean, not all shops do it, but they do it to they up your certification, so they make you to like an expert technician, an advanced technician, master tech, all that stuff. And to do that, you go to school, and they'll teach you different classes, and there's new materials and stuff. Harley right now has kind of a different program where they send you videos every month that you watch those videos to help learn. And when they've got new product coming out, you see those videos and stuff like that. Most of the new stuff, to be honest, you guys know it before we do.
Really?
So it gets leaked out somehow, which it shouldn't. It's not supposed to, but
I almost sometimes, like when I see that stuff, I think it was just before the 2023 season, and they had maybe it was 2022. It was when they were doing the Lowrider ST. And I think like a far off image, like black and white, had been leaked. I'm like, I think Harley Davidson did that on purpose. Like,
probably. Like
almost as a case study, like, okay, how do people like the new fairing? Like, is it really good or is it not so good? Do we need to say that was just fake and then change the whole fairing or something?
Yeah, I wonder that sometimes too, that they tell us don't say anything, but we're gonna say it and let the public see it first. But I don't know. That's above my pay grade.
So is that as the years have gone by? I mean, obviously, all automobiles and motorcycles have kind of moved a lot more to the technology sphere.
Oh yeah.
What does that kind of entail with you guys? Are you using a lot more computers when you're having to work on these motorcycles, and less of the mechanical, or it's like equal amount of mechanical, just a lot more technical?
Yeah. It is. There's still a lot of mechanic stuff to it. Of course, it's a vehicle. I mean, you still have the motor and all that stuff, but everything else is electronics. You plug it into the computer to diagnose it and all that stuff. And I mean, lot of stuff that I'm not real familiar with because it's electrical scares me. I'll be honest. Well, I shouldn't say it scares me. It just I don't understand it too much.
Right.
Just because I can't see it. Can't put my hands on it, stuff like that. But it definitely is with the technology. It's going a lot more electrical. I mean, these new 24s and the 23 CVO with the tablet on the screen. It's
like basically a writing computer.
Yeah.
So do you feel like in the last several years, as that's happened, that more of your maintenance or servicing has moved towards that end of the spectrum? Like, do people come in more still with the mechanical problem, or are they bringing in like, hey, my screen's not working, or that kind of stuff?
It's still a little bit of both. I mean, I think once Harley gets the bugs worked out on stuff, that I don't see too many electrical issues, and it does turn into more maintenance and upgrades. And the Milwaukee 8 motor's been in my opinion, has been a pretty bulletproof motor.
Really,
I haven't had too many issues with this Milwaukee 8. And I like I said, work in Cache Valley. We're a little sheltered over there, so we don't see a ton of stuff. Because I hear a lot of stories when I do go to school and other than those classes that people are talking about this problem and that problem. I'm like,
I've never seen that.
I haven't heard of that at all. So, which I'm thankful for, because there's some of those that, being the only tech, then I got to try to make up for everything else too. So,
right, gotcha. Do you feel like when you get these new engines and new changes to them, that the engineer really had the maintenance or the mechanic in mind, or do you feel like, oh man, they just made my job a million times harder?
That's a loaded question. There's a lot of times I'm cussing the engineers because I'm like, you guys are stupid. You have no idea what you're doing. But there's a few things out there that it's like, yeah, okay, I see what they're doing, but they try to cram so much crap in one area, and it's like, why'd you change that? It was working just fine. So I don't know. Some days engineers are my friends, and others they're not.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time when I was an electrician. I was doing a job. I won't say where because I don't know if they'll be mad, but they put an outlet behind this. Well, it was like twofold. It was like a giant support beam coming from one pillar to another at an angle, and then they put a cabinet at the bottom so that the pillar the support went through the cabinet, and it was like 3 feet thick. And then in the cabinet behind the support was an outlet. No one will ever use this outlet ever. Like, we'll put it where it says on the plan. I'm like, why did you put it there though?
Yep.
I can imagine.
That's always my thing is you got to remove this, and this to get to this tiny little thing. And it's like, why would you do that? I mean, let's just make it simple. That was one phrase they always taught us in school was KISS.
Right, keep it simple, stupid.
Yep. Yeah. And I had one teacher that said he'd KISS with 3 S's. He's like, keep it simple, superstar, because he can't say stupid.
Oh,
So, but there's some days that I look at those bikes and I'm like, oh, that was lacking that day. So, but it's still fun.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that, those of us who aren't working on our bikes, we might not think about, like, oh, it's just doing this, it's just changing a tire. It's just changing the oil or whatever. But there's all these things that you have to remove just to get to that.
Yeah.
Like, what does it even entail to just get your rear tire off? It's a lot harder, isn't it, than just getting your front?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not terrible depending on your bike. There's sometimes of course you got to remove the saddlebags if you're on a bagger. Take your brakes off. You got to sometimes that saddlebag support needs to come off, get it out of the way, or you got to remove the shocks in order to get it around the saddlebag supports. Or it's not bad, but there are a few things that it's a little more in depth. I had one just the other day that guy wants me to replace the clutch cable, and he's like, "Can I do that right now?" And I'm sitting there like, "Dude, I got to remove the fairing. I've got to take that whole fairing off in order to run that clutch cable." And he's like, "Oh, well, okay." So
when's it going to be done?
Yeah.
Is that a hard thing having to? Because you say you're kind of the behind the in the garage guy, and then Brandon, right?
Yep.
He's the front desk, and then helping and whatnot. Do you deal a lot with customers?
Not a whole lot. I mean, not at this shop. The old store we did all the time because the doors were always open. People would come in and talk to us and stuff like that. But this shop, mostly, it's Brandon deals with them and then just relays it to me. So it's got its moments. There's some days that I'm sitting here and I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Just keep them out of here." And then there's other days that I'm like, "All right, who's coming to see me today?"
Do you have like your regulars that come in they can't let their motorcycle be?
Yeah. I mean, and then there's the regulars that come in even when their bikes aren't there, that just come in to hang out. And, and we get those people too, which, like I said, I'm not against. There's some days that it's nice having that, getting to be able to talk and things like that. But
I mean, like we saw you that one day, me and my dad, when we stopped by, and it was good to chat with you after so long.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason I was like, "Oh, I need to have him on." I think that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see what else. What are you seeing most? Are you seeing, mainly just maintain? Are you seeing what do you call it? Just superficial stuff like fitting, like bars and chrome and whatnot? Or are you seeing a lot of motor work with what you guys do?
It's gone in stages. Like over the years, it's all changed from what you see. And I mean, it's right now, a lot of it is, like I said, this might be somewhere I could get in trouble. We can't do exhaust.
Right. Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, there's some weird rules going on with that, with EPA and whatnot.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can't do exhaust. So a lot of people, the big thing used to be a stage 1, which was the air cleaner, tuner, exhaust. Huge thing. I mean, we did that all the time. Almost every bike that went out of that shop put exhaust on it, and now we can't.
So they don't even offer like the Screaming Eagle packages anymore?
We do, yeah. But it's just if somebody wants to. Most people don't. So, I mean, the exhaust count has gone down. The bars on the new Road Glide, a lot of people love them, so they don't change those.
That is one thing that blew my mind about that new Road Glide. And I don't even know why they didn't do it on the Street Glide, because the Street Glide ones are still garbage. Yeah. I'm like, what the freak? I'm like I feel like I'm riding a banana seat bicycle, I'm like the wide bars, and those new Road Glide ones are perfect, and they're like quick adjustable. You could do it yourself, Yeah. So I think if I ever got one, I'd just leave them like that until I felt like there was maybe another pair that matched my style more.
Yeah. And there's, like I said, I haven't done many. On these new bikes I had 2 set of handlebars.
Really?
That's it.
Just on the Road Glides or on the new ones in general?
I've done them on the Street Glide. I haven't even done a Road Glide.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think that they knocked it out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
With that Road Glide set of bars. You did bring up stages with Harley Davidson. That's unique to Harley Davidson, isn't it? Kind of the stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatnot. Would you mind kind of laying them out for those who don't understand what they are, and we can talk about it as we go?
Yeah.
So stage 1, right? Exhaust, air filter, and a tune.
Yep. And then stage 2 gets into cams. So, and of course, usually with stage 2, you have the stage 1. They're all kind of a progressive step. This is the one where I get a little iffy, because stage 3 goes into like
that's like your bore kit, right?
And stuff, yeah. And then your stage 4 goes into heads and things like that.
Gotcha. And then would they consider a stage 5 like just a crate engine, or because I think there is stage 5, isn't there? I don't remember.
I don't either.
I can't. Do you guys see very many crate engines at all?
Only if they've had problems.
Oh, really? So it's kind of like a blown engine, bringing a crate engine.
Yeah, I've had a few blown motors this year that we've had to do some crate motors, or they do a long block program, so which basically gives you the cases, the cylinders, and heads, and then you put your added on parts. So that's usually the route they go. I mean, as for crate motors, I guess a full on motor, people don't do that too much, at least not up here.
Yeah.
So,
because I mean, I know that currently in the industry of Harley Davidson, at least, and Indian, that the performance bagger is kind of the big thing right now. And so I've seen on the internet a lot of I think it's like a 131, and then this last year they introduced the 134 for Harley Davidson. Is it 35? 135. So, I mean, I can't even imagine needing that, because I've test ridden the new 117, and that's even different than the old 117.
Yeah. And
that one blew me out of the water. So I'm like, I don't know who wants to come out and spend 10, 15 grand on a new engine out of the gate. You know?
I've done a few. I've done a few of the 131s. I mean, because you have the 114 that goes to the 131 and the 107 that goes to a 126. Right. 28, sorry. And I've done a few of those, and it's pretty amazing. But then you get onto this new CVO ST. That's the 121.
Did you guys? How many did you get of those? Did you get one of each color?
We've had. I think we're on our third one. We've got one in there
right
now. We've got.
I'm gonna have to come over. So the black one is beautiful.
We're supposed to be getting the white one. I know Ogden has the white one right now too, but that motor with those ride programs and stuff, the ride modes. Oh my god.
Yeah, like the ones that they brought in Kyle Wyman to like. He's been on the racetrack the whole time, and he's like, "Here, this will be good."
Yeah.
Ah, man. Yeah. And I also saw that I think they did some sort of meet and greet with CVO ST owner. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking right out.
That one I'm not sure.
I think they did something that they did a meet and greet with the racers with them and some sort of training or whatever. But I think that'd be super cool. I want to go to one of those races.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to because they have the Bagger Racing League that's kind of the junior league or somewhat like that, and I think it comes through Utah occasionally. Did you ever make it out to any of those?
No, I'd love to, but I mean, being in the industry and in the shop, it's like I said, I can't get out too much.
Right, so, and now knowing that you're the kind of the head guy in the back or whatever. Yeah, I've watched a lot of them on like the internet, like following some of the Bagger Racing League, mainly when Tony Tucker was racing. That was really fun because that's where I'd take a lot of my work to, and knowing those guys at the shop, seeing what they did to put in and get in there, and then after his accident, like that was, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I hope he gets back out there.
Yeah, but then also following the mainstream professional. Why can I think? Bagger Racing League, it just keeps coming to my head. King of the Baggers.
Yeah.
And seeing the factory racing teams, like I'm always like, come on, Harley, come on, Harley, come on. It's pretty. That's what's crazy to me is like it's close. It's neck and neck every single race, whether it's the Indians or the Harleys. Like they're overtaking each other. It's competitive, and I find it super exhilarating. I think I'd much rather watch it than metric racing. I've sat down and watched metric racing, and I don't feel like it has the same like feel to it. Like I think the Harley Davidson community and the Indian community, the way they see each other and the way they like, there's that competitive like marketing like brand loyalty going on, and then it's just completely different than anything that we've ever seen in racing.
Well, it's like they say when they first brought that out and stuff, that people would look at it like, you can't run that fast.
No.
And
I wouldn't have expected it.
No, me either. So now you see all that, and it's like, holy cow, that's kind of impressive. So, and just to see what they can do, and I mean to throw a bagger around like that's just nuts to me.
Oh yeah, I went on a ride once, and a group ride and people were just flying down the road on theirs, and I'm on mine and I'm going like 85 on this back road. I'm like, I am going to die.
Yeah.
I'm slowing down. I don't care. I'm getting left in the dust. Like, I'm just not going to risk it. I mean, people have a need for speed and they just can't help it.
Yeah.
So you said that you have installed some of those, the 131s or 135s. What kind of customer is looking for that? Is that just somebody who wants to race, or is that somebody that just wants to show that they have the 135 on the side?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. This could be, like I said, might get me in trouble. I think some of them it's a showboat.
I mean, that's a lot of Harley Davidson people in general.
Yeah. I said it is, but I'm guilty. I do it.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying I'm for you. I know I try to make my bike look nice.
Yeah. But it's fun though to me too. It's that to go to the different bike, that live wire. When they had that, they brought it up to our shop once, and I got to take it out for a ride, and just I can't even say crack the throttle because it's not even a throttle,
right?
But to open that thing up and just to feel the power, it's just we're men.
Yeah, we want to feel the speed.
And nothing. I mean, women do too. Sorry,
no,
but it's just just something about it. It's hard to explain. Like everybody says it, that you can't explain it if they don't, to someone that doesn't ride. Mm-hmm. So,
and then what's kind of the process? You throw those parts in. You've got to teach the bike how to ride with it now, right? Like you got to take it on you guys have a dyno then, right?
No.
Oh, you don't? Do you dyno at another location?
Yeah, we send them to Salt Lake.
Gotcha.
So they'll dyno it. Usually we send them out. We'll put a basic map in it, and then go out and do a break-in period, and then we'll take it down, let them throw it on the dyno. And but that stuff's been. Haven't done a lot of it lately, just because now you got, like I said, that 117's.
There's really no need.
That's plenty of motor.
Yeah.
So
now, as a dealership, are you required to only use Harley Davidson brand stuff and tunes and whatnot like that?
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, because of the no exhaust and EPA stuff, that's all I can install.
Gotcha.
Is Harley tuners, which from the stuff I've seen, they're pretty set up to begin with. So to put a tuner on, I don't think you're getting a whole lot on there, and that might be different from Tucker Speed and those guys that are using other tuners. I don't know on that stuff, but
with the stages, is there any? Are you going to blow an engine if you do the stages out of order? Like, I don't know anyone that would, but like if you did cam work, but you didn't change your air filter or change what air intake you had and your exhaust, is that going to like blow your engine, or is it as long as you're getting tuned afterwards?
You always run the risk, no matter what. Doesn't matter what you do, you're always going to run the risk. You're putting in bigger stuff into a motor that's, I won't say that it's not meant for it, but it's not used to it. So, but if you put in and you go a cam and you haven't done exhaust and air cleaner, then you're not getting that full potential of the cam. So It's just kind of...
You're not feeding it what it needs.
Yeah. So, like I said, I wouldn't say that you'd run the risk of blowing it up, but you're just starving that motor.
Right. It's not optimized for what's going on.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What are some common misconceptions that people that have motorcycles have about maintenance that you've run into? Or maintenance or changing or modification, whatnot, and stuff like that.
Well, it's different for everyone. A lot of the stuff I see is on services. People come in and ask for a service, and we tell them the price of it, and then they kind of pump the brakes on it. Well, I can do that myself, but it's a matter of if you're doing the full service.
Right.
There's a lot into it. You're checking your nuts and bolts and your brake pads and your belt tension and your steering head and adjusting cables and all that. But most people think Jiffy Lube. You're going in, you're changing your oil, and that's it. So it's when you do a full service, there's a lot to it. And I mean, it comes down to a trained eye that if you're looking for it and know what you're looking for. But for some people that go out there and try to do their service, they don't know all that stuff.
Right. So
then they come in and they're like, well, my bike's doing this. Well, have you checked this in the service? No. Well, that's part of it. So I think that's probably where your big misconception comes, is people not knowing exactly what goes into it. Like we talked earlier about the whole, you've got to remove this, this, and this to get to this.
Right.
And they don't understand that. They think it's just a quick. I kind of ran this in my head before, because I was like, we live in a fast food society that everybody wants it done now, and they don't know what it takes to actually do it.
Right. And then there's also like proprietary equipment too, aren't there, for some of these engines, like on the twin cams, or maybe even with the M8s, but like removing pieces from the engine, you like cam bearings and whatnot. Don't you have like a specific tool for removing and placing? And and it's not like anything else. You couldn't like cheat it any other way, right?
Yeah. I mean, people could, but then you're not going to be running the way you should.
Bust their engine.
On the M8s, I mean, for doing cam bearings on the M8, you've got to have it set at a certain depth. I mean, there is a measurement that if you don't set it right, then you'll be off on everything. The twin cams, there's different tools out there for the bearings, and I mean, I'll throw myself under the bus, but there was one that I did a cam bearing, and the tool wasn't set the way it should, and I overcranked it, broke the case.
Oof.
So luckily that was my own personal bike, so it wasn't on the customer's. But yeah, I had to buy.
Well, that's all. I mean, that almost sucks. Just as now it's out of your own pocket to fix.
Yep.
So do you see a lot of people that do try to like do their own stuff, and then they're like, "Oh crap, I'm in over my head.
Oh, yeah.
I got to bring my bike in."
Yeah.
And then you're like, yeah, dummy, you should have just brought it in, because now it's that much harder for me to fix.
Yeah. I mean, there's been that. I've had a few guys that they tell me, oh, I'm going to do my own bars. And I'm like, okay. I mean, go ahead. I'm not against it. If you want to work on your own stuff, by all means, do it. But then they come back and they're like, oh, that took me 3 days, 2 weeks, I've heard. And like, I should have just brought it to you. I'm like, yeah, I would have had it done that day.
Well, and now you've invested whatever money it took to get that, and now you're also paying on top of it our fees. So.
Yeah. Or it's they do it themselves and then bring it into me and say, hey, this isn't working right. And it's like, well, yeah, because you did this wrong. So
is it almost harder to come behind somebody else's like home garage work? Like they've now messed something up, or is it pretty like, okay, I can diagnose that?
And sometimes there's been some, and like I said, I don't know how much to say to throw people out, but I've had guys bring in a bar job and it's all with trailer wire or the same color wire, and I'm like,
so they're like extending all their cables on their own and whatnot.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm trying to figure out which wire's what and what's running where, and it sometimes gets pretty bad. And I look at Brandon and I'm like, all right, just order him a new part, because I can't do that.
Right. It's going to take more time and money than to just replace it.
Yeah. Yep.
So what kind of do dealerships offer any sort of like maintenance packages? Make sure you're hitting your, what is it, 5,000, 10,000, and then every 10 after that or something like that?
We do every 5. So every 5,000 to change your fluids. And I know we used to have, I think we still have one. Being in the back, I don't have to deal with this stuff a lot, so I'm not 100%. But
you're just like, the bike comes to me. I'm working on it.
I work on it, but I think they've got a service plan right now that if you do, like you said, you pay X amount, and it basically adds up to where you're almost getting a free service.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, I mean, that's not bad either, because services get a little spendy too.
Right. Have you seen a pretty big increase with materials and the service that you have to do because of, things like the pandemic and supply chain shortages? Like, have you seen it been going up the last couple of years?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We watched, what was it? Just right after COVID that we watched tires jump $100 in like 6 months.
Don't tell me that. I need new tires.
I noticed.
You looked at it though. How embarrassing. No,
So,
I don't know if you listened to some of the episodes, but I've talked about it with my buddy Zach, and it's like we were looking at him. He's like, "Dude, your front one is like 8 years old, and the other one is the factory tire." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna die." Like I haven't been riding as much because I'm like, I know I need new tires.
yeah, and they're pricey. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of those things that I've always struggled with because I'm like, man, I can buy 4 tires for my car
For the same price. Yeah.
but different compounds and stuff. And I mean, we've seen a lot of price raising in a lot of stuff. I mean, our oil's gone up, your filters have gone up. It's all of it. During the pandemic, we struggled to get stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we couldn't get anything. And now that's, I think, slowly starting to come back. But
were you starting to see like people turn down service? Like they come and like, hey, I need new tires, or I need an oil change or whatnot, and they're just like, I just can't afford that.
oh yeah, yeah, we get that all the time. I mean, you'll go in and you'll be like, hey, I can't. You've got this problem, and it's I can't afford it now. And you're like, dude, I can't. I can't send you out like this, but it's
Right.
like I can't afford it.
Yeah, and then the whole shop suffers because you're not selling as much and getting the work done. Do you guys usually have enough work for what you got? Are you overloaded? How do you balance that? And then once winter hits, do you just have people bringing stuff in, or you got to?
Yeah.
How does that all work?
I mean, summertime, yeah, I've got plenty of work. We usually try to keep it about 2 weeks out, booked out and stuff like that. And then wintertime, it slows down, of course, because we got snow, and over there in Cache Valley, it's a completely different animal than over here.
Yeah, I mean,
So
twice as much snow easily.
oh yeah, and so it's a lot of that's the big projects. That's when people are doing the motors and the bars and all those big jobs.
Right.
So and usually they throw out a special to help bring stuff in and just to keep me going in the winter, but. I like it because, like I said, it slows down, gives me a little bit of a break, some time to catch my breath, and then come right back to it in the summertime.
Gotcha. What has been, if there is one that stands out, what has been like one bike you've worked on that really stood out to you? Your favorite bike to work on, or maybe one that you just like, I'm glad I had part in that motorcycle. Is there one that kind of stands out to you?
We did, one I could say is we did a freewheeler, so which is that Road King trike for a guy that's paralyzed. And so we set him up to where he could get back on the bike and still run all the hand controls and everything and still get him to sit on the bike. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that sticks out to me just because it's helping somebody else out that he hasn't been on the bike for 10 years. And
Right. And he still has that urge.
yeah, we can help him get back on the road.
I like that. I when you said that, it reminded me, I used to live in Ogden, and there was a guy in traffic that I saw, and he was, I don't know, 3-something feet tall, and he had modified the freewheeler into having like raised floorboards and raised controls. And I'm like, that guy's out living his best life. Like, no one's going to tell that guy what to do.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's just so cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. I mean, doing stuff like that, and there's a bunch of other bikes that I've worked on that stick out to me, but I mean, a lot of it turns into the person that owns that bike. That's where it becomes special. I've got another guy that I've got a Road Glide that it's, if he ever listens to this, he's gonna, I don't know. It's my dream bike, and I've done everything. I've done a 131. I've done Legend suspension. I've done the Rockford stereo, done a tour pack. He dumped a ton of money into this, and he's that's probably one of, like I said, one of my favorite bikes, and he keeps pushing me to buy it.
Is it hard to watch some bikes that you work on that you just love, like leave the door and be like,
oh yeah,
no, that's mine.
Yeah,
in my head, it's mine.
Yep, it is. So, and then it's hard on the opposite end that you see bikes come in that are not very taken care of, and you're like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, baby. We'll get you working again.
Yep.
Oh, fun. Well, hey, I'm super grateful that you're able to come on today. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure there are a lot of people that will listen and hear some things that they really needed to hear. So super grateful for your time.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I mean, maybe we'll have a time that we can have you back on, talk about different things. So
I'd love to.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time.